This is Doug Varnberg, and welcome back to another Tips and Tricks. And today we're going to talk a little bit about boat rigging and some things I do on my boat to make it a little simpler and easier to take care of my equipment, to make it easier to fish. One of the things is your trolling motor, the recessed trolling motor. We'll get in here and look at how I mount it down, how I coil the cables and everything to keep it nice and tidy. But one of the big things is I use a product from Ram. It's a ram mount. I like mounting my graph in the front up on a ram mount because what it does is it allows me to position this unit anywhere on the front to make it easier to view, keep it out of my way. I can raise it up if I'm vertical fishing to make it easier to look at, closer to me. For example, straight up and down like this is actually going to be higher. You can get different lengths of these brackets here, and you can actually have this grass raised up higher to make it easier, like if you're vertical fishing, to push the buttons to make a change, save a waypoint. But when I'm fishing fast, shallow, one of the things I like about the ram mount is you're able to adjust it anywhere up here to get it out of the way. I actually like mounting it pretty much like that for most of the fishing casting stuff. It keeps my bait out of the way when I'm casting, roll casting, that type of stuff to protect the unit, but still give me a lot of viewable area on my graph screen. There's a couple simple things. One thing I recommend is taking the pressure off of these ram mounts when you're storing the unit. I like to store my units inside, keeps them out of the weather. But with these balls, if you clamp that thing all the time, it's going to make an indentation in it, and it's not going to tighten down as much. So if you loosen that pressure, it allows this rubber to expand again, and it'll have a lot more holding force all the time for you. Now, as you can see, here's the trolling motor pedal. What I do is I actually run my wire and I wrap it around my cable here, and then the plug-in's right up here. This helps keeps it nice and tidy. But one of the neat things is this little product. It's a little wire that I've got made from my good friends down at Transducer Shield and Saver that allows me to screw that screw outside of the normal mounting spot, so I don't ever have to move. If I need to remove this trolling motor pedal, I can quickly unzip all three of those and not have to move my trolling motor pedal. It makes it nice and simple and easy to install. You can see here we've got our ram ball. Okay, to hook up the electronics, just put your ram base on there, the mount on there, and just tighten her down. Pretty quick and simple and easy to do. Now with Humminbird, you've got all your cables in a single cable collector. This is my transducer, this is my communication port like GPS, this is my power side, the 2-pin port. But it all goes in one simple, easy connector. Just screws into the back of the unit. This is my Ethernet networking cable that allows me to share my data between my two units. Actually, with this unit, it also allows me to show my transducer, my GPS, and temp probes between both units if I choose to desire to do that. But to hook it, there's just a little black protective cap here on the back that covers the Ethernet port. You plug it in. You plug it in just like that, tighten it up, and I like to just jiggle that thing just a little bit as I'm tightening it. Don't get it super tight and then do it. Just do it a little bit at a time, and that'll firmly put all your connectors in at one time without bending any pins or damaging any of the connectors. On the Ethernet, there's a little notch right down here at the bottom, and that notch is going to be at the bottom of your Ethernet port. All you need to do is put that up, take your fingers, and screw that thing on there. Now the thing is to adjust your graph depending on how you're using it. If I'm going to be fishing out in the shallow water, I like to mount that thing where it's good and tight. And you get that sucker on the ground and you give her a good snug, and she's firm as can be. She ain't not going anywhere. Now, one of the things people ask me is how to run transducer cables. One of the biggest no-nos would be to run your transducer cable along with the steering cables and the power supply from the foot pedal to the head. There's a lot of electricity going through this, and you can create electrical noise, radio frequency noise, if you run this transducer down this cable. So what I recommend to do is I've come out of my dash panel right here with my trolling motor cable. I've actually got it running up and as far as away from this plug-in, away from the foot as much as possible, comes out, runs down my trolling motor shaft, or my bracket here, comes up, comes around, and it comes right down the shaft. It's staying away from the head, it's staying away from the foot, and the electrical noise possibilities up here. You need to put a little loop in it. Some guys will attach it, loop it here, so as the trolling motor spins, a couple inch loop just like this will be plenty to allow that trolling motor to spin all the way. Or if you leave a longer loop, it'll allow you to slide your trolling motor up and down without restricting your cable. You need to remember that if you're going to go to shallow water, deeper water with this trolling motor, you're going to have some cable here. Plus you're going to have a little bit for the turning of the trolling motor as you do it. Now let's move down to the foot of the trolling motor, and I'll show you some neat rigging stuff to make it a lot easier for you and to protect your investment on your Humminbird side imaging stuff. Now that we have our cable run down our shaft, there's a product from Transducer Shield and Save, and you can see this bracket here. It's actually camouflaged pretty good because they powder coated black, plus the hose clamps are powder coated black. But what this allows you to do is it allows you to mount this side imaging transducer for your Humminbird directly to your Minn Kota. It offers protection in here from front from blunt actions to keep from damaging your transducer. Ever since I went to this style of bracket, I've never had a problem with my trolling motor. The other thing, if you notice how thin this bracket is, it allows for that water to flow past here for your prop to actually work without any restrictions. There's some other brackets that are out in front that put a big block, and it can actually cause that water to flow around and help cavitate the prop, actually requiring you to have more thrust on the trolling motor to go the same speed. So this is a very nice product because it's very thin, slim, and doesn't affect our trolling motor performance because of the bracket design. This trolling motor here has universal sonar in it. I'm actually not using it at all with my side imaging because this transducer here, the Humminbird HDSI transducer, has the 2D traditional 283 kilohertz transducers built in it, and side imaging and down imaging transducers all built in this single transducer. This is basically for a backup if I would need it. The cable is underneath my console and a couple bolts. If something ever happened to this, I could plug it in. But with the new Ethernet system, a couple button clicks and I can be back using the back transducer if I needed to. But this is just a couple rigging things. One thing I always recommend to do is keep your strap. Anytime you're not fishing, if you're running down the lake, strap that thing down because that keeps that trolling motor from bouncing up. If you notice, these transducers do put a little bit of down pressure in the down position to keep, and you'll see just a little bit of bow in that, and that's to put pressure on this thing to hold it down in the rough water. But the strap is very, very important, and I highly recommend it. Now, one other thing I want to tell you about is this 360-degree breakaway. Inside the Minn Kota, you have a big spring that is actually holding a lot of downforce on this bottom cup that allows this motor to break away in any direction. With all that force, there's a lot of pressure pushed against the aluminum housing in this composite bracket. If you take a little silicone spray, or what I use is this KVD's line and lure conditioner, and you just spray a few shots around there every once in a while on both sides. Helps keep that thing lubricated, so if when you do need to break away, that thing is nice. It's not solid and it's not locked in, so it can break away real easy. You don't have to do it often, just every once in a while, just give you a little bit of lubrication on that breakaway. so that thing will break away when you need it to break away. Now, one thing that I do on my setup is I rig a GPS receiver at both locations. Now, one of the things that I do is this GPS location for this unit is from this receiver working with this transducer. If you notice, if that trolling motor was down, I'm only dealing with about a foot, maybe a little bit less distance from the receiver to the transducer. So any waypoint that I mark with this unit here, with this receiver, with this transducer, I'm very, very close in a circle to where that waypoint is. It makes it easier for me to get back on a waypoint and to use that waypoint to get back with the one at the back of the boat. You reduce your error by doing that. There's a couple little things that I do. I like mounting my receiver on the rubber pads here on the front, because that way if a guy did not want a GPS up here or wanted to remove it for any time, you could take this off, buy your new rubber pad, and it would never look like anybody's had it on here. That's just one of my little tips to make it easier. Another thing is, on all my wiring I use a wire loom material to cover all the wires. And one of the things, you can buy this at an auto parts store. I've actually got this roll. This one's a 50-foot roll. This will last you for a long, long time. Many installations. But this is like the Chinese finger trap rod sleeves. You can buy different types of wire looms. But when you do this wire loom, when you cut it off, it'll actually fray on you. So what you need to do is, if you cut it off, your little piece to put in there, and I actually recommend on both ends, is to just take that thing and get you just a lighter, and what you do is you just kind of burnish those ends so that they don't start unraveling on you, and it'll make it a lot cleaner install, keep them nice and protected. Looks better, a little harder for twigs or anything to get in the way and grab those wires. It's a little protection advice for you.